Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
The power of the great I am. This month we're going to explore what it takes to live in the land of milk and honey. Isn't that a great phrase? I love that. To live in the land of milk and honey. Just sounds really, really wonderful, like paradise. Where did the term the land of milk and honey come from exactly? Does anyone know? Yeah, very good. Yes, it did. It was the land that was promised to the Israelites when they were enslaved in Egypt. In Exodus, it reads, "And the Lord said to Moses at the burning bush, I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt, and I have heard their cry because of their taskmasters. For I know their sorrows, and I have come down to deliver them out of the hands of the Egyptians, and to bring them out of the land, and to a good and large land, to a land flowing with milk and honey."
Awesome.
This month, using Moses's and the experiences of the Israelites, as set forth by Catherine Ponder in her powerful classic book, The Millionaire Moses, as our examples, we will explore the consciousness required to live in our own personal land of milk and honey. Because we all know that it's first all about consciousness, right? So we have to begin. Consciousness. The land of milk and honey really isn't a place to get to, but a state of mind or consciousness to come from. It's where we come from. And when we come from that consciousness, the land appears in our lives. This is an important conversation to have now because we are at a time in the evolution of humankind that we need to either fish or cut bait, as the saying goes, about our prosperity consciousness. We've been studying this a long time, haven't we? Yes? Isn't it time to finally master this one so that we can get on to some more important things? Right? Like expressing our brilliance, sharing our gifts, making this world a world that works for everyone. Those things are a heck of a lot easier to do when you're not struggling to ensure that your rent or your mortgage is paid every single month. It goes back to the hierarchy of needs, doesn't it? The teachings from the life of one of the wealthiest men in the scripture can help us get there. Did you know that about Moses? That he was one of the wealthiest men in the scriptures? Well, now you do. You can learn something, a takeaway. Today we will begin our series at the beginning, which is always a very good place to start, no singing, as we lay the groundwork by looking at 3 40-year periods of Moses' life, each one deepening his prosperity consciousness. And I know we usually think of just the one 40-year that he did in the wilderness, right? But actually there were 3, not all in the wilderness. There were just 3 40-year periods. This morning we're going to begin to see how these 3 periods of growth can apply to our lives. So, are we ready? All right, then let's go. But okay, before we go, let's take just a moment to establish one thing that I think is really important. Who remembers what 40 stands for metaphysically?
Completion?
Well, you have to, for a change to occur, you have to do something.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a biblical thing. The storm lasted 40 days, and
Yeah, I've talked about this often,
Completion?
but this is, it's really important that you get this because this is what's really, really
change is
powerful.
40 days.
40 stands for all the time it takes for transformation.
transformation.
All the time. It can be 40 days, it can be 4 minutes.
Yes.
It just stands for 40 days. That was the number they threw out. And he went to the desert for 40 days and 40 nights. And the storm lasted for 40 days. It's all the time that it took for that transformation in consciousness to take place. Noah and company spent 40 days on the ark. Buddha spent 40 days under the Bodhi tree. Jesus spent 40 days being tempted.
Yeah.
Goliath spent 40 days taunting the Israelites before David came forth. And of course, Moses and the Israelites spent 40 years in the wilderness. Metaphysically, 40 represents all of the time that it just takes for transformation. So it's not literally 40 days or 40 years, but whatever time it takes for the transformation of consciousness to occur. Moses had 3 such periods of transformation in his life. We call them the Egyptian period, where he learned about inner and outer wealth and opulence, the Midian desert period, where he discovered who he was And finally, the well-known wilderness period where he got to prove and teach what he'd learned in the first two periods. So let's take a look at each one and see what they have to offer us. The first period, the Egyptian period, Moses spent his time as an adopted son of the most wealthiest man alive, which was the Pharaoh, right? The King Pharaoh. In this period, he was exposed to immense material wealth. He lived in opulence. He grew up appreciating and expecting the finer things in life. He didn't think that there was anything wrong with having them. He was never told, Moses, money or the love of money is the root of all evil, or Moses, you don't deserve it, or money doesn't grow on trees, or you'll never make anything of yourself. A lot of those things some of us may have heard somewhere in our journey of life, but he didn't hear any of that. To him, living in opulence was a given. It was normal. Our abundance lesson here is that if we are not comfortable with material wealth, then we need to get comfortable. If we're not comfortable having the very best, if the very best isn't for you, who is it for? It is for the beloved. And who are you but the beloved of the one, right? So it's our job to get comfortable with opulence and with material wealth, whatever we want to call it. But more than having the outer experience of wealth during this first period, Moses was given instruction on the inner laws of prosperity and how to use them. And this is everything that we're going to be talking about this month. But let me touch ever so briefly on the foundational secret that he was taught that I think is important that we all get. So, are you ready for this? This is really important. Everybody lean forward. All right? Here it is. Substance is the key to all abundance. Let me say it again because this is a critically important point. A secret that really isn't a secret now because you all know it, right? Substance is the key to all abundance. So what does this mean? Well, first we must ask, what is substance? Wallace Wattles, right back to the turn of the century, right? The Science of Getting Rich, where he discusses substance in some detail. He writes, everything we see on earth is made of one original substance, out of which all things proceed. New things are constantly being made and older ones dissolving, but all are made out of one thing. There is no limit to this formless substance. The space in, through, and between the forms of the visible universe are permeated and filled with this original substance, the raw material of all things. 10,000 times as much as has been made might still be made, and we would still not have exhausted the supply of universal raw material. The formless substance is alive and is always impelled toward more life. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I know.
Wow.
So what is substance? Substance is God, universal energy, source, whatever you want to call it. That is what substance is. And it is that before taking form as form in ever-changing forms. Okay? And how much substance is there? Well, the answer to this question is truly key. An infinite amount. We're never going to run out of God, right? Universal energy, an infinite amount. No matter how much of it you use up, the amount you started with will be left over. Knowing this, really truly knowing this, not just in your head, but in your heart, is the key to wealth and abundance in all of its beautiful forms. And Moses learned this in the first period of his life. So in this first period, Moses teaches us to gain an appreciation of and a comfort with outer material, and to embody the inner secrets to wealth, starting with the foundational idea that substance is the key to all abundance. And there's very, very much an important balance that needs to be made there. The greatness of Moses lay in his ability to have a relationship with both sides of prosperity, as within, so without, right? That balance. So think about it for just a moment. Where are you in this? Where are you in this balance? Do you have a good balance here? If not, what can you do to get into balance? So this was a critically important time for Moses. Critical ideas for us. But it was only the beginning of complete transformation. So who knows why this period ended? Do you know? Oh.
He left Egypt.
That's right. Moses saw the abuse of the Egyptians that they were heaping on the Israelites, and he couldn't take it anymore. He stood up and said no. He killed an Egyptian guard and he fled Egypt. So that takes us to our second period, the Midian Desert Experience. When he fled Egypt for his life, Moses entered into the second 40-year period, or the second period of transformation. This is called the Midian Desert Period. He brought the prosperity consciousness he developed in Egypt with him. And how do we know this? Well, he married into a very, very wealthy family. Like attracts like, right? It was in this period that he encountered the burning bush from which came the voice of Jehovah. And the metaphysical meaning or interpretation of Jehovah is the God within. That's what Jehovah means, the God within. When Jehovah spoke to Moses through the burning bush experience, he told Moses that the universal God power, the power that would guide him, direct him, and show him the way, was named, I am that I am. The indwelling God power was named, I am. Those two are the most powerful words that we can speak. I am. The burning bush experience is Moses hearing his inner voice, his I am presence, and having a personal, intimate, heart-connected relationship with the God of his being. He had always had a relationship with God, but it was with an external God, something out there, a being that was out there. At this point in his life, it became really personal. And remember, he came back from that experience totally changed. Well, at least Charlton Heston did, but, these are the pictures we have in our mind of what he came back looking like, right? His face was illumined. He was a different person as described in the Bible. We must all connect with the God that is within. The place of love, the place of peace, harmony, and good. The place of divine wisdom and guidance. Just learning how to create our good isn't enough. We've all done that. We've all mastered the beginnings of Science of Mind teachings, which is, wow, we can create anything. And we start doing it. We get so excited. But we don't stop there. That's great. It's a great beginning. But it's not enough. There's more. There's more to living in the land of milk and honey than just that. When Moses doubted his ability to stand up against the Pharaoh and get his people out of Egypt, Jehovah gave him a rod to help him. When Moses lifted that rod, it brought blessings. When he lowered it, it brought curses. Your I am is your rod of power. That is your rod of power. I am is the name of the God power within you, and you can use it to bring about a blessing or a curse in your life. That's the free will. We can take this law. We can use gravity as a good thing or a bad thing, depending on whether we're falling off the ladder or, staying stuck to the earth, right? Every time you say, I am sick, I am afraid, I am weak, I am discouraged, I am not worthy, I am depressed, etc., etc., you are speaking God's name falsely, and you will get a false result. It may be a true experience for you, but it's still a false result. Because the I am nature of God within you cannot be sick or discouraged, because it is filled with life, with power, with unlimited good. I am spoken upward toward increased good, causes it to outpicture as that good in your life. So what follows your words of I am? This week, I want you to pay attention to that. Anytime you say I am, think, wait, what am I saying? Where am I putting my power? You make your destiny by the things that you attach to the words I am. We're going to put that into practice in just a little bit, but first we're going to go on to the third period, the wilderness period. This was Moses' final period of transformation. And at first blush, it doesn't seem to be a very prosperous period. For heaven's sakes, 2 million wandering aimlessly, people, in the wilderness, just doesn't sound terribly prosperous to me, right? Kind of a bleak picture they painted there. But it was during this period that Moses combined all that he had learned in the first two periods and then deepened them tremendously. The mission of Moses during the period was to demonstrate and to teach the Hebrews that God was the source of their supply, that substance was the key to all abundance. Remember, he learned this in the first period of transformation. Now it was his time to prove it and to teach it. So we don't really know something until we can teach it, right? Until we can prove it. When we can prove it to ourselves, then we know it to be the truth. He was to teach them how to trust God one day at a time for their supply. Wow, that's kind of scary. How would that be in our lives? One day at a time. Wake up, I'm trusting that my supply will be provided. Just enough manna came down for the day, for each day. If they took more than they needed for one day, the balance would spoil. If they didn't take enough, it would stretch. The only day that was different was the day before the Sabbath. Then they took twice as much on that day, and it lasted so that they would not have to gather on the Sabbath. And by the way, water came from where? Right out of the rocks. Water came from the rocks. This is a huge, huge teaching, and if it's the only point that you get out of today, it really, really can be enough if you truly get it. Trust God one day at a time for your supply, and it shall be provided. Trust God one day at a time for your supply, and it shall be provided. But this was also the periods of ups and downs for Moses and the Israelites. Sometimes they were happy to have been delivered from bondage, right? Other times they criticized Moses for having brought them out into the desolate wilderness. Gosh, some people are just never happy. It just always happens that way. And great learnings of staying power came forth from this period. So great that they will be the focus really for the rest of this month, but I won't go into all of that today. For now, let's look at these 3 40-year periods of Moses' life as a metaphor for our journey of connecting with our eternal land of milk and honey so that we create the outer land as well. So we're going to review. The first period we learned that we must gain an appreciation and a comfort with outer material wealth and really get the inner secrets to wealth, starting with the idea that substance is the key to all abundance. This gives us the balanced relationship with both sides of prosperity, the physical and the metaphysical. We know where it comes from. We can enjoy it while it's here, but not be attached to it because we know that form is always changing. The second period, we learn the great I Am and how it is the rod of our power. The third period, we learn to trust God one day at a time for our supply. And then we get to watch it be provided. Because that's what we do when we do our treatment, right? We accept that it's already given and then we look for the results. So to bring our time to a close, I want to go back for a moment to the second period, the Midian desert period, and ask you, how are you using the power of the great I Am? Are you raising your rod high to proclaim your truth, your connection to God's goodness, and bring forth blessings in your life? Or are you lowering it by speaking God's name falsely and getting false results? I want to end this morning in a prayer of affirmative statements. I am statements. And so, if you want to join me, close your eyes just for a moment and repeat aloud after me. I am health, strength, and peace.
I am
Health, strength, and peace. I am happiness and prosperity.
I am happiness and prosperity.
I am strong, well, and vital.
I am strong, well, and vital.
I am beautiful, serene, and poised.
I am beautiful, serene, and poised.
I am happy and free.
I am happy and free.
I am open and receptive to my highest good
I am open and receptive to my highest good.
in mind, body, and financial affairs,
In mind, body, and financial affairs.
here and now.
Here and now.
Where I am,
Where I am,
good things happen
good things happen.
because I am one with God,
Because I am one with God.
and so it
So it
is.
is.